Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. Yep, so once again, there goes that narrative. Supposedly, RFK Jr. is gonna pull more votes away from Donald Trump than he is from Joe Biden. You know, even RFK Jr. alluded to this not too long ago in a podcast. He claimed that his internal polling data showed that a majority of his voters would rather vote for Trump than Joe Biden.
This is what I always thought, and correct me if I'm wrong, I always thought it was a bad move by the DNC to try to get you off the ballot, because I thought you might take more votes away from what otherwise would be a Trump voter. What do you think of that?
I take more votes away from Trump than I do from Biden at this point. So we've polled our own people, and we take about 57% of the people who are our supporters who we poll say that if I drop out of the race, they'll vote for President Trump.
And obviously, this is the stuff of nightmares. This is the stuff that keeps you up at night. Kind of spooky to say the least, but I'm not sure it's as great of a threat to a potential Donald Trump term as a lot of people are suggesting. First of all, if that was the case, why don't we see it playing out in the polls? This is what the RCP average looks like with RFK Jr. represented in the election mix. Trump seems to be winning handedly, and that's just nationally. You know, there's something about this narrative that I'm just simply not buying. And I think the main reason is that I just cannot envision a world where Trump supporters drop a proven president like Donald Trump to vote for a guy like RFK. You know, I've said it a million times before, I like RFK Jr. I think he's a pretty cool guy. I'd like to have a beer with him. He seems like a decent guy to have a conversation with. He certainly seems genuine, and he seems like a good person. But some of his ideas, I mean, they're too much. And they're certainly too much for your average Trump supporter. We've covered a lot of those ideas. RFK Jr.'s tendency to, let's say, be sympathetic to extremely far left woke causes and talking points. And well, today we got another one of those moments. This time on Timcast's show with Tim Pool, RFK Jr. doubles down on essentially the cancellation of Columbus Day. He claims that he doesn't want to cancel Columbus Day, but he essentially does. Let me show you guys exactly what I mean by that. We got some stuff to get into, so let's roll the tape. All right, folks, so I pretty much laid out the groundwork. Just take a look at this interaction.
So it was your announcement as running as an independent candidate. You said, it's a hopeful sign now for our country that we celebrate Indigenous Peoples Day. It shows that we're ready as a nation. It shows that our country is now ready to explore and to tell each other the untold histories of those dispossessed people who have previously languished on the margins.
Yeah, you have problems with that?
With changing the name of our holiday?
I didn't say we're changing the name.
But so
people are welcome to call it Columbus Day, but it's also called Indigenous Peoples Day.
It's not.
This country's big enough for a lot of different people.
Sure, but the idea of Indigenous People Day was literally to take the name Columbus away.
Well, that's your idea. It's not mine.
Well, the activists literally said they were changing the name of Columbus.
But that's not my idea. It's your. It may be, or maybe some activists who want to do that. But you know, I feel like that the Indigenous people should have a day. If it overlaps, there's many holidays that overlap with each other, and that, you know, we shouldn't be taking away from one group to give to another. But I do think we need to make a larger commitment to Indigenous people because they have been systematically robbed and cheated, and you know we need to do what we can as a country to make sure that, you know, that there's some kind of amends for that past.
I agree that an Indigenous Peoples Day is fine, but it literally did start as a counter to Columbus Day.
Well, and yeah, but that's your beef, you know.
Absolutely, it is.
Right,
yeah,
I'm not. You know,
I mean, but
it's not the way that I look at it.
You know, the guy's squirming, and I personally think he's either being dishonest or naive. No, I don't want to cancel Columbus Day. I just want it to also be Indigenous Peoples Day. Look, apologies if this offends people. You can't have it both ways. RFK Jr. might be arguing that both can exist simultaneously, but the reality is, the obvious reality is, no, they cannot. These are two things that are certainly mutually exclusive. If you're on the left-wing side, when it comes to this particular left-wing activist point, you are anti-Columbus Day. You are for overshadowing the day and replacing it with this new woke version. And essentially, in my view, you're part of this Marxist cultural revolution. You want this big cultural reckoning in the nation where the past must be condemned and history must be rewritten. It's complete woke nonsense, and I personally want nothing to do with it. You know, I don't know about you guys, but I'm sick of all of these new days. Every new day is some new woke celebration or new woke protest. It's some day claimed by some new group. I mean, people have compiled some of the lists out there. It's just so mind-boggling. I took a break from recording and I tried to find the list. I can't find it, but I showed the list in a previous video. You guys have seen it before, and I don't even really need to show the list for you to understand, for you to get it. We all get it. Every day is a new day, celebrating green-haired, asexual, non-monogamous birthing people, celebrating this, that, and the other. Every single group and every single identity has a day or has an entire freaking month. It's just becoming too much and too overwhelming. What I think it's viewed as, what I think is perceived as, for the most part, is the woke world gone nuts. And what we need, at least in my opinion, is a counteracting force to this woke nonsense, to this cultural revolution. But RFK Jr., I mean, he dives in every single time and supports the cause. It seems without really questioning either. And this constant litigation of the past, this constant lecturing and forced apologizing, in my view, has to stop. Enough is enough. You know, it's over. Get over it. That's American history. That's European history and, frankly, world history. A lot of things happened in the past. There were a lot of wars, a lot of wrongs were done, colonialism, I mean, the list goes on. There's a lot of ugly in the past. We can't keep apologizing for it. You need to be able to move forward, and at the end of the day, Columbus Day is an important holiday. To me, it's the initial birth of a nation, the birth of a new world. And the story of that birth is a positive one. Was there damage done on the way? Absolutely, like the birth of any other nation. But the idea that America's story is a negative one that must be rewritten or apologized for is absurd. There is no country that has had more of a positive impact on the world than the United States of America, period. Had Christopher Columbus never crossed over and did what he did, well, the world would be a very different place today. We should be celebrating a macro view, a view looking at the whole timeline and where we ended up, rather than nitpicking every little moment in history, every little injustice, and asking current peoples, the current modern people, to apologize and answer for it. Look, people say RFK Jr. appeals to Trump supporters, but I think it's clear that he obviously doesn't. It becomes more and more clear every single day. You know, there might be a little bit of alignment in terms of policy or political worldview, but I think the more we get exposure to this guy, the more we see him, the more he seems like a typical, naive, woke college student. And maybe that's a big insult. Maybe some people are going to get offended by that, but that's just my perception. There is no way that this guy is pulling support away from Donald Trump. He might see it in his internal data, but as I stated, it's not showing up on the data. And honestly, I think the closer we get to election day, the more RFK Jr. will slowly kind of fade into irrelevance. And if it is the case that he's pulling support from all these Trump supporters, I think the most likely scenario is that those people will most likely go back into the Trump camp as they realize the person they signed on with. And if anything, Trump's going to continue to build a bigger lead. But of course, I guess we'll have to see. We'll see if he even gets on the debate stage. As of right now, I think RFK Jr. is slowly fading into irrelevance, only pulling a very obscure group of people that I don't think can be called Trump supporters. Anyways, that's what I got for you guys. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.